The sound of Berkshire.
Bridgitte Tetteh.
Bridgitte Tetteh. BBC Radio Berkshire.
Wednesday afternoon then, shall we bring you up to date? Because it was around about 11 this morning that we saw Sir Martin Moore-Bick actually deliver his findings for the Grenfell Inquiry. And it was a really damning report. And as a result, we've had lots of response throughout the day. And I wanted to start actually with Sir Keir Starmer, who has apologised to the families affected by the Grenfell Tower fire disaster. After that scathing report, the inquiry concluded that decades of failure by successive governments and the construction industry led to the deaths of 72 people in 2017. Well, the report says the high-rise block in West London was covered in that combustible cladding and accused manufacturers of deliberately concealing the dangers their material posed. Well, the Prime Minister told the Commons that residents were let down badly and indicated that changes would now happen.
In the light of such findings, it is imperative that there is full accountability, including through the criminal justice process, and that this happens as swiftly as possible. So I can tell the House today that this government will write to all companies found by the inquiry to be part of these horrific failings as the first step to stopping them being awarded government contracts. And we will, of course, support the Metropolitan Police and the prosecutors as they complete their investigations.
I also heard from his predecessor, that's Rishi Sunak, who said it was a damning indictment of more than 30 years of failure by the state.
As a Prime Minister, current or former, you are a custodian of the state. And its failures, whether on your watch or not, are something that you feel deeply. And to that end, I want to extend my deepest apologies to the families and victims of the Grenfell Tower tragedy. The state let you down, and it must never do so again.
Well, Paula Shalloo is from the End Our Cladding Scandal campaign group and has been giving me her reaction to the report.
Well, I mean, our focus today, first and foremost, has to be on the Grenfell community and, you know, for them to see finally the truth of what led to this tragedy, which, by the way, was entirely preventable. And, I mean, what reaction can you have other than to be deeply, deeply shocked, you know, that this could have happened? And there need to be consequences. That's probably the most important thing. And you're absolutely right. You know, the finger has been pointed very, very strongly at the product manufacturers. In fact, I think the words used were systematic dishonesty.
Well, you're right. Sir Martin Moore-Bick focused in on the manufacturers of the cladding products, and he described them as being by far the largest contributor to the Grenfell fire, and also are found to have engaged in, as you say, systematic dishonesty and use deliberate and sustained strategies to make their products appear safe.
Well, first thing to say is that that's not new news because a lot of this came out during the inquiry. So we've known for a long time that, you know, there was extremely, well, bad practice, would be putting it very mildly. So it's not a surprise. I mean, it never fails to shock, but it's not a surprise. And, well, it's horrifying. I mean, for the hundreds of thousands of people across the country who are still living in buildings with unsafe cladding and other fire safety issues, you know, to know that this was deliberate and to know that this could have been prevented, but that profits were put before people's safety. It will never cease to be shocking.
You've been talking to people who are living with this sort of cladding on their buildings. I wonder, what have they been telling you about how it is impacting life many years on?
Well, the impact is terrible. And as you say, it is many years on. So, you know, the length of time that everything has taken has just made the impact of, you know, that much worse. But, you know, it doesn't take a huge leap of the imagination to imagine how it feels to go to sleep at night or to go to bed at night, knowing that if you're building caught fire, you might only have minutes to get out. You know, that is a horrible stress for people to live under, particularly anybody with disability or who might be looking after vulnerable people, you know, children, young babies. the thought of having to cope with that is just horribly stressful. So we see a lot of people who are suffering with very poor mental health. And obviously there's a financial stress that's added to that, on top of an already existing cost of living crisis. So yeah, it's just, it's been very, very bad.
In the Thames Valley, we recently had a fire in a block of flats in Slough, which contained this type of cladding. And, this only happened just a few weeks ago. We're still hearing from those who've been affected by this. I'm just wondering, what is the action then that can help people like that now?
Well, it's again shocking that we're here 7 years later and that this is still happening and that these buildings have not all been fixed. What's gone wrong is that the pace of remediation has been far too slow. So much time was wasted with various parties arguing about who would pay to remove the dangerous cladding rather than focusing on getting it off the buildings and making all the buildings safe. So what we need to see now is we need the government to step up and grasp the nettle and actually, accelerate this whole process and make sure that buildings are made safe quickly, and to make enough funding available for that to happen, and to use enforcement powers to force any bad actors, developers, freeholders, whoever it may be, to force them to take on their obligations and to fix these buildings and, take people out of their misery, because so many people are living in limbo, because apart from the worry about their safety, they can't move on with their lives because they can't sell, they can't move, literally can't move. So they're trapped in every sense of the word.
What would you suggest then to somebody who's in that position? Given what's happened today, what's your advice to them?
Well, the advice would be keep speaking up. Don't be fobbed off. Make the government hear your voice. Get in touch with campaign groups. Reach out for support. The legacy of Grenfell must be that people can be and can feel safe in their homes. And Angela Rayner said just the other day that, when she visited the site of Dagenham, where there was another fire, and she said that, these are not assets. These are people's homes, and people need to feel safe in their homes.
That's Paula Shalloo, who's from the End Our Cladding Scandal campaign group, giving me her reaction to the report. I see as well, actually, the Archbishop of Canterbury, that's Justin Welby, has called for deep reflection and meaningful change after the Grenfell Tower report. He says it was chilling to read that systemic dishonesty and refusal to listen to concerns was partly to blame for this disaster. If you want to read actually a little bit more about what the Archbishop has to say, do have a look at the BBC News website.